Onto the nationwide bus strike, which today entered its 16th day and by the looks of things set to continue. Talks today deadlocking yet again between employers and Satawu and four other unions, of course, that are representing bus drivers. Unions are demanding 9.5% increase, while employers say they'll only offer between 8 and 8.5% as recommended by the CCMA. For more on this in studio, I'm joined by Employer Caucus representative Yunis Shaik and Zanele Sabela from Satawu. Thank you both for joining us today. Perhaps let's just begin with the talks that were held and the reasons for why they broke down this morning. Going into it as Labour, you sounded quite optimistic. Why is that not the case at the end of the day?
So what happened today is employers actually, although the whole week they have been denying that they issued us with an ultimatum on Thursday, today they actually made good on that word. They actually came to us and they said no, they're taking off. They actually said we're reverting back to the mediators' proposal of 8% and 8.5%. So that was a shocker, considering that I was sitting right here and talking about this ultimatum, and later on I sat and I watched how the employer representative said no, they hadn't issued us with an ultimatum. Then on Thursday, no, there was no such thing, that we would meet today, and they were willing to meet. So it was quite a shocker. And once again, you know, we find ourselves sitting here and we realize just how from the beginning they have been negotiating in bad faith.
We'll get to the employer's response in a moment, but let's talk about the offer which you're saying has been rescinded on. How much had they put on the table in this ultimatum that you're saying took place?
In the ultimatum, last week Thursday, what they put on the table was 9%, but that 9% was only for 11 months and not for the full 12 months. And then they had put 8% for the second year on the table. So today they rescind that. Actually, they say that that was never on the table. So we are a bit surprised, we are a bit shocked. But it's good that Yunis is here to explain.
Yunis, is Zanele correct? Have you been negotiating in bad faith?
Absolutely not true. As a matter of fact, the employers over 10 years have given the drivers the highest income of the bus industry. They won 3 or 4 times inflation. So no one has been able to convince them that this demand of theirs is absolutely unreasonable. The Minister of Transport, the Minister of Labour, the CCMA, and today the Passenger Forum has come to beg the unions to please reconsider their demands.
But where it concerns that there was an offer of 9% that was put on the table, which the union subsequently took back to their members and today came back to find it was no longer on the table, is that true?
There never was a 9% offer. We have consistently said over 2 weeks that the offer being made is 8% in year 1 and 8.5% in year 2. This has been consistently said for over 2 weeks. The mediator came to the employers to say, would you consider 9%? The employers, everyone, said, we cannot. So when we said we cannot pay 9%, the unions last week broke off negotiations. When we came this week, they say, are you prepared to pay 9%? The employers say, we are not able to pay 9%. The union now says, well, we now demand 12%.
But why would they lie about this agreement in your mind?
You tell me.
Zanele, are you lying?
She must explain this.
Are you lying?
Okay, so Yunis has only been in today's meeting and last Thursday's meeting. So this is why I forgive him for maybe not understanding what's been going on. This 12% you talk of, Yunis, was the demand on the table when the strike began. We have since compromised. We have since come down to 9.5%. That was last week. Today, as a concession, we came down to 9%, but we wanted that 9% for the full 12 months. And then we're keeping the 8% for the second year. So, and those issues, remember those issues that we have been drumming on about?
Yes, and we're going to get to those in a moment that form part of the reason why you're striking.
So today, we said to them, because these issues are very sticky, let's take these issues, give them to a task team that will deal with them later on. And this task team, to make sure that it delivers on its mandate, it doesn't become, you know, these were given to the task team a year ago and nothing's been achieved. We will do it under the auspices of the CCMA. This is what we came with today. We gave to them. And can I just say, they refused. Usually what happens at negotiations, we get into one room, into plenary, all of us in the morning, and then we say our hellos, and then we open up the talks, and then they go off to caucus. We stay to caucus. Today they said no. We'll stay in our room and you must stay in your room. Talk about bad faith. So, and then we gave them that concession that, okay, this is what we're willing, because the strike has dragged on for so long. Yeah. This is what we're now putting on the table. And for that, we had this thing about...
So Zanele, if I understand you correctly, you're basically saying that the employers are playing hardball. Yunis, what are the concessions throughout the process of the strike that the employers have made in perhaps as a response to being understanding of where workers are coming from?
Firstly, I don't get confused. I've been a judge of the labor court. I've been a CCMA official for 10 years. I've been a trade unionist for 15. I know negotiations. I know what's bad faith, and I know how to conduct negotiations in good faith. Now, here's the position. Over 10 years, the employers have been giving the drivers an increase, double inflation. This year, inflation is at 4%. The drivers are demanding 12%. The employers are offering 8%, which is even double what inflation is. The workers still say, and the drivers in particular, no, we want more. But let's look at what the passengers earn. The passengers earn 4,000 Rand. The driver earns 16,000 Rand a month. What does a policeman earn? 13,800. What does a nurse earn? A nurse earns 18,000. What does a teacher earn? 16,000. What does a bus driver earn? A bus driver earns minimum, the average in our industry, of 16,000 Rand. Now, passengers have to pay for the bus driver. The dear passenger only earns 4,000 Rand. Now, when you make a demand of 12%, it means the passenger who has to, on average, buy a ticket every month of 600 Rand must now pay 660 Rand. Now, passengers can't afford it.
And we'll get to how the unions are suggesting that these added costs, of course, that would come in as a result of this increase should be factored in.
But why should a passenger who earns 4,500 Rand subsidize a driver who's earning 16,000 Rand?
Are you saying that that's the only way?
There is no other way.
Be able to?
There is no other way. Who pays for the ticket? It's either the government subsidizes the ticket or the passenger pays.
Zanele,
so 50% is paid for by the passenger, 50% is paid for by government. Government, as you know, cannot afford to pay anything. In fact, the government has got a bus company. That bus company cannot even afford to pay wages of the drivers.
Sure.
That's how bad it is.
Is it correct, Zanele?
For one, I cannot believe we are going to sit here and have an inequality debate around people from the same community. Let's talk about the bus drivers as opposed to the bus driver owners. That is an equality debate we should be having. This whole thing about bus drivers and 16,000 on average, it doesn't even fly. Bus drivers earn on average 8,700. A minimum wage for a bus driver is 6,900. The minimum wage within this bargaining council is 6,070 rands. So this 16,000 that Yunis is talking about, I'm not sure where it comes from. This is why the 16,000 he talks about is what brings up the average from the minimum, I suspect. Two, what else did he talked about? He talks about the fact that passengers will have to carry this cost. Bus companies get subsidies, which over the last 3 years have gotten increases. They've told us that they haven't received increases since 2011, but we've since found out in the last 3 years they received 3.24% increase in this financial year. The year before they received an increase of 6.16%. The year before was 11.2%. Let's talk about inflation, Yunis. Let's talk about above inflation. If we are talking about inflation increases, let's talk about why this is not reflected within the wages in this industry.
The bus drivers are earning the highest wages in the industry.
If 6,900 is the highest salary.
The highest wage increases were awarded to bus drivers over 10 years. And I've been a CCMA commissioner since the beginning of the commission.
I, however, cannot claim these credentials.
Correct.
But
so that's fact one. Fact two.
No.
Fact two. Your passengers are earning 4,000 rand. The bus driver is earning 16. The fact you don't even know what the bus driver earns shocks me.
Let's talk about these passengers who earn 4,000 rands.
Do you not care for the passengers who earn 4,000?
I'm going to break the dialogue in a moment, but finish your sentence.
Can we talk about the fact that these commuters that he talks about, Yunis, are your customers who have been struggling now for a solid 3 weeks? Where is your sympathy? If you have a business, you ought to care not just about your employees, you also need to care about your customers. You haven't shown any care about your customers in this case.
Let's talk about the concessions with regard to the actual negotiations that are taking place. In terms of this care that Zanele is speaking about, Yunis, and I did ask the question before, what are the concessions that the employer has made with regard to the current labor dispute that you have gone to them with and said, look, we can't give you what you are asking, but this is as far as we can go?
We have sought to give the bus drivers nearly everything they want. They want an increase on night allowance. They want a night shift increase. They want a tool allowance. They want a cross-border increase. They want maternity leave. They want family responsibility. They want cell phone allowance. They want health care. All of these things we agree to give them. Now, you talk about care. The reason I'm here protesting is because I'm speaking on behalf of the passengers. The passengers say they can no longer afford the increases in the ticket prices. So on their behalf, we're standing up to the union to say, enough. 10 years, we have tripled your wages. Enough. Think about the passengers. The passengers line up from 4 o'clock in the morning waiting for a taxi to take them to work. They're running into the danger of coming home late at night until they can get home because of the buses are not operating. The unions are exposing our mothers, our sisters, our children to danger on the road. And why do they do this? Simply because they want more for themselves. The passengers earn 4,000, they earn 16, they want more.
Let me just bring up something that, because part of your argument as employers really points to an issue of equality, and you're drawing references between the salaries that bus drivers earn and the commuters that they service. But I think that is a whole entire conversation around the inequality and income levels in this country and how they remain low. And it's probably a conversation for another day. Zanele brings up the issue of what do the drivers earn in comparison to what the bus owners earn. Because in the same breath that you are saying, sure, let's account for
absolutely.
The
you know, in the last 10 years, I've not received an increase more than inflation. In the last 10 years, I personally have not received an increase more than inflation. But the union has demanded for the drivers increases on average 10%.
But the drivers surely don't
It's a
earn
shocker.
as much as you do, Yunis.
Exactly, this is what I'm about to say. 9% of 100 rands is not equal to 9% of 1,000 rands. So let's compare apples with apples. Let's not do this, Yunis. You probably haven't received an increase above inflation because, quite frankly, you could pay about 17 bus drivers with that increase that's based on inflation. And it's probably because you have shares and you take dividends home. Let's not get into this. Will not get us anywhere. Can we just bring it back to where it's supposed to be?
How do we resolve the impulse? Because if this interview is any indication of what's been going on behind the scenes, how do you both plan on moving forward? What's the commitment from employers?
Our commitment is we are willing to pay a fair wage increase. We are offering a double inflation. We're offering 8%, number one. Number two, our passengers are our greatest concern. We refuse to allow our passengers to be extorted by the drivers. So we're standing up for our passengers, and we're standing with them, and we're prepared to suffer with them.
All right. Zanele, very briefly.
On average, bus companies last year increased their fares by 7%. It is very rich of Yunis to sit here and claim to be speaking for commuters. When we come from the very same, he speaks about the fact that they have to wake up early and go stand in queues. Bus drivers on a daily basis have to be at the depot at 3 a.m. in the morning and drop off a bus at 8 p.m. at night. And for that, they do not pay them night shifts.
All right.
You're kidding
Unfortunately,
me. Bus drivers work 6 hours a day, get paid 8 hours a day, and are now demanding to be paid for 12 hours a day, but only work 6 hours. That is the demand.
Zanele?
When he says they work 6 hours a day, he means they have to wake up extra early to pick up everyone else so that they can get to work early. And then when the rush hour finishes, there's a lull. And you have seen somewhere in Rivonia, a bus driver in his bus sitting there the whole day in his bus, waiting for the next rush hour. Now, this idea that people, when they are sitting in that bus, on the steering wheel, is rest, and it's not work. It flies in the face.
Everyone works 8 hours, gets paid 8 hours.
Just because
drivers work 6 hours, demand 8 hours pay, and now want to be paid 12 hours.
You know, you can
don't
shout
you feel
it.
ashamed?
You can shout it from the rooftops.
But don't you feel ashamed?
Change the facts. The facts of the matter is this thing needs to be resolved, and we will not resolve it the way employers have been going on with their bad faith. We need to come back. We came back in that spirit this morning, and we gave them what we thought was a concession worth considering. Now, all they needed to do was consider it.
We had the ministers try and get involved in this process. Why do you think that that intervention has been unsuccessful to date?
The Minister of Labour and the Minister of Transport pleaded with the unions to be sensible, to take into account the needs of the passengers and the whole economy. They refused. When the ministers came to plead with them, they were demanding 9%. When the passengers come to plead with them to stop it, they raised their demand to 12%. Tell me, Zanele, tell me anything. What is it we should do?
Why do you think that the intervention of the ministers didn't work?
Okay, so I need to correct something here. Yunis couldn't possibly know what was said in our consultation with the ministers, because they saw the ministers separately from us. So when he says they pleaded, I could say they pleaded with the employers to please pay these people because they work so hard. They work 14-hour to 17-hour days, Yunis. They work that hard and they get paid a pittance.
16,000 rand is a pittance?
It's not 16,000, and you know it.
16,000 rand, Zanele, is a pittance?
All right, I'm going to have to end off this conversation here, but in terms of the CCMA and the other interventions that need to take place, who needs to get involved in this process? Because surely, clearly, there is no way of breaking the stalemate as it is.
Can I just tell you, the CCA commissioners, all three of them, came to tell us what the employers had done, took their briefcases and said, thank you very much, bye, and left.
Yes. So the ministers came and left. The CCMA came and left. The passengers came and left. Why? Because the drivers don't wish to listen to anyone.
Zanele, is there any way that you can convince drivers to drop their demands? I mean, have you at all had this conversation with those that you're representing?
Kathy, in all honesty, can I just tell you, the drivers mandated us to go in there and give them the 12%. Get us the 12%. If you put a driver here, he'll tell you, I want 12%. We have compromised and we've come down. We've even gone past 10%. They came into the strike with a 7%. We're now sitting at 8%. Who has moved? Who has, this afternoon we said to them, you know these sticky issues, we realize we cannot work on them now, we'll work on them later. Who has been, how much must we give and give and give?
Zanele, they start demanding 12%. We say we can give 8. It upsets them. They don't want to negotiate anymore. So now, as of today, they are 12%. But I'll tell you what it is. We plead on behalf of the passengers. We plead on behalf of the South African working community to the drivers and to Zanele. I plead with my sis to take into account all the people who are suffering. Please accept 8%.
The one thing I have to say, I am closer to the bus driver than Yunis will ever be. And the people that he's talking about that came to see us today, I can get you their number so they can come tell you to your face what their situation is. And this...
All right. All right, I think that's where we can wrap it up for tonight. Clearly a very emotive issue, but it's a conversation that we will continue with on Newsnight, just to also reflect the voices of those that are affected on the ground. Zanele from Satawu, thank you for your time. Yunis, thank you for your time.